Welcome back to Josh and Reid Are Parents. Today, the guys discuss how and why teenagers do the things they do and how anger can often get in our way of responding to them well. They did have to power through some technical difficulties this week, but what could be more millennial parent than that?
Hey guys, and welcome to episode 4 of Josh and Reid Are Parents. I'm Josh.
I'm Reid.
And we're parents. I gotta admit, that's the best we've said the name of this podcast yet, man.
By far. And we've done it a lot of times and a lot more times than the audience has heard because we have been going through it. We've been slogging through the world of technology.
What we've realized, guys, is that what we've really known all along is that we don't know how to do a podcast. Like, we don't know what we're literally doing is just hitting record and talking to each other. And that level of podcasting is I don't know, it's not enough. Like, we have to know more things than that. And so we've run into some technical difficulties this week. But here's the flip side of that coin. I've just got to hang out a bunch of times with my boy Reid, which honestly, and this is what we've said every single time, and we've tried to record this podcast already. The only reason that we do this is mostly just to hang out with each other. And like, at least that's the top reason. The other reason we do it is because we like to talk about parenting. We like to talk about how we love our kids, how we love our kids well, how we love our kids in the way that is intentional and purposeful, and like just how hard it is. So I don't know, Reid. Do you think we're gonna make it through this one? You think we're gonna?
I can't wait to find out. Trying a new platform, the video might look different. If for those of you that watch on YouTube, maybe the sound is a little bit different. Hopefully, it's still clear. We won't know. We have no idea. We won't know until we try to post it. So we'll find out in the next couple of days. And I disagree. I'm here. Here are the reasons I'm here. Number one, for the money. That's it. I'm here to get paid, baby.
Yes.
Cut me that check. I expect royalties soon from YouTube's rolling
with those
in.
dozens and dozens of views we have so far right now.
Those dozens and dozens rolling in. and pretty soon we'll be getting State Farm will be calling, just ringing us up. Jake from State Farm will be on our tail trying to get on the we get it, Jake. Cool it. No need. We got it. We'll read it for you.
I really hope it's Jake that calls us.
I hope it's Jake. I think it is. He does. I think he does everything for him.
Does the marketing too?
Yeah, that's his whole job. And I'm here for the money. No, I'm here because I want to hang out with Josh and just catch up and talk about life. And then I'm also here because it's super fun to like try and talk about things that I don't understand and expand my own knowledge and like have conversations I think are worthy of our time and hopefully say something at some point that somebody's like, oh yeah, I feel that. I've experienced that too. So parents, thank you for listening. If you're a teenager, thank you for listening. If you're a former teenager that we like taught or coached in the last 15 years, you're out there doing it. You're like doing the thing.
We're so doing it. We're so proud of you.
Yeah. We still love you and care about you.
Yeah. Reach out. Let us know.
Yeah. So I'm pumped to try this again. And I think it's gonna go super smooth. I don't see any issues in our future technologically.
Yeah, we're flying clear right now. Everything's going really, really well. Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things that's cool, we talk a lot about just being able to hang out with each other. Reid and I met in Nashville. We talked a little bit about that last time, but and so we worked together and coached together and did some of that stuff. But he's now in Abilene, Texas, and he's a minister at the Highland Church there. I work as a counselor in Atlanta, and so we're super spread out. So like we really don't ever get to like hang out other than this. So this is a really good time for us. One of the things we talked about last episode in episode 3, which is, I mean, banging episode. Like you gotta go check that out. I'm telling you what, like again, dozens and dozens of hits on that. But it was really good because it's fun to talk about behavior. I think a lot of times, Reid, when we think about parenting, what we often think of is behavior and like managing behavior.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot more to it, but I mean, I think it's a vital part of like trying to figure out how do we figure out what to do with behavior of our kids. And specifically where you and I are like from a professional standpoint is that we work with teenagers, right? And so I don't know, just thinking about teens and their behavior and the parents you work with, I don't know. What are some of the questions that you feel like they're facing? What are some of the things that you see is like really kind of important and significant to that population right now? Do you have any thoughts there?
Yes.
You got a few thoughts?
I do have thoughts. I think it's the stuff that got stuck in my brain for episode 3.
Yeah,
it's just like I can't. It's been rattling around in my head, and I'm just kind of like sitting with it still of these two core questions that Josh kind of broke down for us last time, that teenagers are asking and wrestling with at all times. What hurts and what are you afraid of? And or what's hurting and what are you afraid of? And I am like sitting with that and just have been struck by the power of that. Also knowing that like if you were just to ask that to a teenager, they would just look
Right.
back at you like, "What's wrong with you? Why
Right.
do you? Nothing is. I'm not hurting, and I'm not afraid of anything. I have
Right.
nothing, like, have you seen me? Like, I don't have anything to be afraid of. I'm a teenager.
I do not suggest like parents asking their teenagers like just for out of the blue, like at dinner, like what hurts and what are you afraid of?
Right now.
I like unless I don't know, maybe you guys have already built an amazing rapport, but if not, like they're gonna look at you like what are you asking me? Please don't anymore. But I do wonder, and Reid, I'm interested in this. Do you feel as though those two questions are like really like truly are what a lot of your teens face most often? Like, do you see some of that, and is that something you feel like they wrestle with for real?
Yeah, I do. I think it's pretty ubiquitous, and I think for a lot of our teens, I think it shows up as anger, and kind of just will come out. And if you're the parent, you know this goodwill that's how it shows up, is that like there's like this whoa, like what's happening right now? You just like went 0 to 10 pretty quick there. And so I think it shows up in those sorts of ways, and or in that way with anger kind of being this I don't know, overlaying thing. But I don't know enough to really like, that's not, I don't know a lot.
I disagree. Reid knows a tremendous amount.
I need you to talk me through that relationship between those questions, and then like why anger, why is it not just like tears, or sometimes it does look like tears, or like why anger being this primary emotion?
Yeah, so one of the things that's really interesting about the teens that I work with and the parents that come in is that most of the time, this is not 100% of the time, but most of the time when they arrive, but the parent will say something about, and they're just so angry and they're so mad and they're so frustrated, like, and they arrive inside my therapy office, and they're really disrespectful, they're really irritable, or kind of like whatever the thing is at the moment. And one of the things that I feel like is very, very true about anger, and something I rely on as like kind of a place to go inside of therapy, is that anger 100% of the time, like zero sum, we don't use that word a whole lot in therapy, but like 100% of the time is covering hurt and fear, right? Like it's just that anger is never, I think, like ever its own emotion. It always is the protector of hurt and fear. You kind of see this, I think, anytime like we like stub our toe on the couch or whatever, and it's just like immediate rage. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced this, but like, what am I mad at? Am I mad at the couch? Am I mad at my foot? Like, what are we mad at? It's just what our bodies and our minds do to take us, because it feels way more powerful, and it gives us adrenaline and cortisol and all the things we need to like feel a little bit better in that moment and be able to work through that suffering. And so when I hear a teenager's upset, I'm like, 100%. Of course they are. They're really angry because the experience of a teenager most of the time, especially in our culture, is one of fear and one of hurt. And I want to be clear about this. I don't think that every teenager experiences that all the time in every moment, but I do think that really does kind of like, I think it masks and like covers a lot of stuff, right? So a person can be having like a really good day at school. A kid can be having a really good day at school, but then they have to go find a place to sit at lunch, right? And so like it's not like they're like are huddled in the like their lockers crying, but like going into that lunchroom when you're not exactly sure where you're going to sit, there's just fear there. And when there's not a place for you to sit, there's hurt there, right? And so like that's a really understandable like classic example, but So for me, Reid, when I think about anger covering hurt and fear, and how often parents experience the anger of their teenagers, one of the things I'm always interested in, especially from the way that you communicate about theology, is like how do we look at anger in a way that is healthy and maybe spirit driven, and like I don't know, is a legitimate way of dealing with anger from a Christian perspective. What are your thoughts there?
So I think anger is a key component if I'm going to be able to understand God. I spent a lot of time trying to like run away from the idea of God, like the wrath of God and those sorts of things. Like that's all like, oof, I don't know. That's pretty dark.
That's scary.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, no thanks. But I do think that there is something about God's anger, like in the text, like when you read the Old Testament and you see the times God's getting angry, the anger of God is always connected to justice, especially for the orphan, the widow, the alien, and the poor, the disenfranchised in general. And so there's this special relationship God has with these groups of forgotten people in societies at large that I think is key to us understanding God's anger. And that I don't think God's anger is ever final. I think God's anger is what I would call redemptive, I think, in some capacity. And then I also am struck by how honest people are allowed to be in the text with God. Yeah. Whether that's Job or it's the Psalms or any of the psalmists or even Jesus in the garden, although Jesus is God from the Christian perspective, so that's a different thing. But anyway, but where it's like, I don't know what to do and it makes me feel mad, or it makes me, So like you have these texts where like the psalmists are crying out to God with this pure rage, like they've just stubbed their toe.
Yeah.
And apparently there's space for that in God's world.
Right.
Because the psalmists don't get struck down.
Sure.
The other angle of anger that I think about is like with the role the prophets play of speaking this truth that might feel like they're angry, but I think they're just revealing something that's really like underneath the layers of systemic society at large, or whatever, in the ancient world, or whatever in our world, like the prophetic voice of like Martin Luther King Jr., for example. Like there are times he might have sounded mad,
sure,
but he's actually just speaking about something that's like deeper than, like, it's capturing this imagination of like what justice looks like right now. And so that connection with anger and justice is really interesting. And so I think a lot about those things. And I also am thankful that that my anger is a reasonable thing to God, I think. And I'm not supposed to like shove it down and like act like it doesn't exist within me. I'm invited to bring it to God.
Sure.
And say like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, is there any way we can process this? Because I'm feeling, like a rage or whatever. So
right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, dude. I love some of that imagery too, like the idea of like that we don't have to be afraid of like the anger of God, that it has purpose and intention, and that like it's not all of who he is either, but we have to recognize its significance. I like that a lot. I'll tell you, as you were talking, one of the things that it brought to mind for me was in my therapy room, some of the most powerful moments that I've had while being in there, moments where things get different from like a human perspective, are moments of like great sorrow, great like deep grief, right? Where a lot of like the human pretenses of kind of like thoughts and worries about how they're being perceived are kind of wiped away, because like it doesn't matter because of just how much pain I'm experiencing. Do you know what I mean? Like those moments.
Yeah.
And how if they can access, and the moments that I'm talking about, they access just deep anger towards God, right? Just like, so they're so mad that there's this much suffering. They're so mad and so upset that they are suffering this much. And like that honesty and that truth of that anger, like is I think in a lot of ways it brings truth to things, Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like I like the pretenses of like whatever, like humanity is kind of wiped away, and they can just be themselves, and they can like be honest about how much anger they have towards this, and then they realize that it's not necessarily just anger. What it is deep sorrow,
Mm.
right? They're just so sad and so hurt. And like when they realize like there's the end of this anger, there's something else. I think that I don't know, I think that's sort of spirit meets people. I do, like, if honesty and truth, like that's where in a lot of cases I've seen release and healing begin in a lot of ways, right? So I don't know, I was thinking through that, and like the psalmist and those kind of things that just like were like honest and true with their anger, and I don't think God is afraid of it, right? Like, I don't think God is afraid of it. And I think I would be interested in that thought process, like kind of as parents, you know?
Yeah. I was thinking about that a little while ago when you were talking, and I was thinking about why I feel the rage show up in me when my child won't do what I want him to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this truly was like I just had this thought for the first time. Like, that rage comes over me. It's similar to when I stub my toe, right? Like, it's like, because I'm so afraid that means he won't obey.
Yeah.
Like forever. Or like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like there's like this, like it's just, I know this will get it done. So anger shows up to like try and remedy the situation. And it becomes this, then it becomes a learned thing. And so the process of like unlearning that has been hard, like brutal. Yeah.
You were telling us a story last time. You were like a little bit of that story about your mom and understanding your anger, which I think is so good. I like the idea of your anger being your protector. Tell us that one.
Yeah. So when I was 20-ish, 21, I don't remember when we had the conversation, but I went through like a real transformation in my life of the person I was and the person I am still becoming, but it was a hard switch that flipped initially, and then now it's just been a long time of walking out what that means. But in the initial switch, one of the things that happened was I was in a conversation with my mom, and she told me, she's like, Reid, for the longest time you've had this like layer of anger that just exists like right underneath the surface, and it wasn't that I was like lashing out at people a lot. I wasn't getting into fights. I wasn't doing anything that was like anything like that. Like not getting into fights, whatever. Any other thing like that. It was always just like sarcastic, cutting remarks to keep people at an arm's distance, because I didn't want people to get in to learn that I was very much hurting and very much afraid, because I was like a walking wound, and so my anger became this it like in a way became a protective mechanism, which I'm in some ways really thankful for, because it did, like it protected me from a lot of things, but it also made me unkind a lot. And so part of the process of that was like kind of opening back up and saying like I don't have that isn't my only response in life. And so for a while it kind of just like subsided, and not that I was never mad, but like it wasn't like it was. And then with parenting, it's like like with my own child, for whatever reason, it's like snapped back like in a weird way. Not with other people, even just with him.
Yeah.
Not necessarily sarcasm, but just like that fits of rage almost, or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose it. And so 14 months ago, last Lent, I decided like I'm gonna give up being harsh toward Henry for Lent. Like my goal is to not say a single harsh word to him, which of course didn't actually happen, but there was like this in a similar fashion of what the conversation with mom when I was 20, but like where like this anchor has been set in my heart of like when I do notice it happening, I can now return to like, I do know how to like walk it out. I don't have to, it's not my only mode of being in this relationship. And so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that you had told us a little bit about is like how your mom had responded to you in that conversation. Do you remember what, like particularly what she said to you?
What did she say? I should remember this. It's my mom in my conversation.
You had told me that your mom had said, Reid, I used to see that in you. I used to see that, right, that anger in you.
Yeah.
And now I don't anymore. I don't see that. I feel like it's something that you don't have to protect yourself from anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
And you had told you had told me that story, and I just remember that being like, I don't know, just like so formative. Like A, that she had recognized that shift in you, and B, like that she had waited to like walk you through that until you had been on this side of it, instead of like, yelling at you one day about your rage. Like it was like, hey Reid, I've been watching you work through this for a while, and I see you're on the other side of it, and how that's like cemented in your head a little bit of like who you are versus who you were,
Yeah.
And it's some really good parenting there.
Yeah.
I think a lot about this, and I think about talking to parents often about what they do with their kid that will like really isn't very communicative with them right then, like really doesn't have the ability to talk in a way that's productive often, or the only thing they really get is like anger and frustration and like words that aren't very kind. And it's such a hard moment, such a hard thing, especially like when they desire like a good, like if they're trying to be good parents, they really want a close relationship with their kids, and there's just a lot of hurt and pain in that. But I think if we can foster a little bit of like what you were saying inside of that, in like I don't have to respond in turn to my kid's anger. It's not required of me. I think so many parents actually kind of feel like it is. Like in that moment, it feels like, when they talk back, when they say something, like if I don't respond, like if I don't respond with anger and like meet them at that moment and say, no, I will not allow this, then somehow they're going to turn out bad, or I'm going to do something wrong. And I wonder if instead, like what we're called to and what we're asked to do inside of it is to recognize like this is communication of hurt and fear, right? Like my kid is obviously, and like the levels here are like nuanced, and it's hard to know exactly, but there's some sort of pain going on here. There's some sort of like fear and anxiety inside of this. And so then if I can recognize that about my kid, okay, can I find, first of all, sturdiness inside myself that like their anger towards me doesn't have to turn anger back towards them, right? Which I think is a massively hard thing, but something I think we're called to. And then two, like, can I be curious in it, right? Like, can I be curious about like, hey, I'm seeing this. I wonder where there is hurt. I wonder where there is fear, and seeing if we can partner with them in that. I know that seems really hard though.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem hard. And I think even the simple thing that I would love for you to speak to a little bit is like when those moments are happening, like when the escalation is taking place, whether they're 9 or 18. And you just said it a little bit of like it doesn't have to happen right now.
Yeah.
But like, what does it look like for it not to happen now? Like but am I not just being like, okay, you win, I'm gonna walk away? Like, how does that actually work?
So one of my favorite strategies, I work with a lot of kids from all over the spectrum, and they all like all different kinds of issues. But one of my main populations is with kids with ADHD. And so in some of the workshops we do, we talk about this method of get out of the room, like the get out of the room method, which I believe in so much as with my 9-year-old, and I believe it even more so with teenagers. It's this idea when my kid is really struggling, or they have really unkind words, or the only thing that they have at that moment available to them to communicate is anger, right? What I'm not advocating for is just allowing it to happen and like, cowering at it or anything like that. But the flip side is this idea of saying, this is something that is inappropriate and wrong, right? We do like, this is something that's not acceptable. This behavior and the way you're speaking is not okay. And this is the next choice I need you to make. So first of all, that's a big one, is really showing them and being very concrete, even with teenagers, even with older teenagers, like I need this next choice to be made, right? So it's very clear about what they need to do next. And like having them understand exactly what's needed. Maybe if there's a boundary they're about to run into, like what the consequence of that boundary is, very short, very concise, and very concrete. And then get your tail out of that room. Right. So that's the get out of the room method, because what happens so often, I wonder if you see this, and I know I do inside of my parenting of of a 9-year-old, and like I see my parents working through this. I saw it myself as a teacher, right? Is I just, as soon as I start going towards them and negotiating them and like trying to stop their anger with my anger, I just get ramped up, and so do they. Yeah. Right. And they, what happens with teenagers who do not have a fully formed prefrontal cortex is that they can no longer see their goal of getting a popsicle or getting more Fortnite time or getting to take the car that night. They no longer see that goal. That goal is gone. The only goal they have right in that moment is to defeat you. Right. That's the only thing they care about. And so you want to get grounded for 2 weeks.
Finish him.
Right. That's it. You want to get grounded. How about 4 weeks? How about 8 weeks? How about 20 years?
Baby. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like in that moment, that teenager is like, every bit of that. Bring every bit of that on. I am not afraid. I would love to yell at you. And we just we just keep going and going.
Yeah.
If I get out of that room, I tell them what the next choice is, and I get out of that room. I come back in 5, 8, 10 minutes. And are they in perfect behavior? Are they making great choices? I don't know. But at the very least, I know what I am. I know what I'm going to say. And I still have the rest of this kid's life to talk to them about how to be appropriate, what's appropriate behavior, how this is not a respectful tone, and how we can talk about it. And I don't have to meet that anger in that moment. It's actually really, really good if I don't. So get out of the room. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'm hearing, to summarize it, I'm hearing you say that the most important thing in that moment is to show them what it looks like to regulate yourself and return to the conversation, and then circle back and say like, whew, got hot in there.
Right.
Man.
Right.
I bet I know I was feeling it,
right.
Owning your own feeling of like, I got mad.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had to walk away for a second. Let's circle back and talk about it. And being able to model that for them, and then show them that regulation is not only possible, but that like, even in like the most contentious moment can like save what might then turn into like a 2-week, headbutting situation, walk away. Whew. All right. Come back. Yeah. They might still be at a 10, but if you come down to a 2 or 3, it feels different, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of fire and fire, you've got fire and water, and you're able to then make your own choices that are probably way better.
I think the 2 ways of like thinking about this that could be really helpful is, the first is that your kid needs calm, and they need it from you. Like they need to be able to borrow it. Like whether or not they make that choice to do that is still up in the air. But like the only shot they have is if you have some for them. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you have calm for them? Like, if not, there's 0% chance that's happening. If I can bring calm and they can borrow it, then we have at least it's in the room, Yeah. So that's a big one. I think the other one too is like this idea that I can show them what leadership actually means. I can show them sturdiness, and that their emotional responses to me are not effective of me. And I want to be really clear about what I'm saying here. What I'm not trying to talk about is just stoicism. It's just like blank face. Like I have nothing to but what it is that I have cultivated an intentional, like, oh, wow, when that hits, I am working my tail off on saying, okay, well, I'm not going to let my anger come out right now. I might go into my bedroom with my spouse and just, right. But in your face to you, I will take it, and I do not have to respond back with anger. Because I think that shows authority. It shows togetherness. It shows strength. And I think we always think that after we blow up, I mean, like, if I had just been calm, I think that's what he needed. And so trying to bring that in and helping parents work through that, I think is a really cool thing. I think it's a really hard thing, but I think it's something that we can like cultivate and practice for our kids.
Yeah. I think of the Mr. Rogers song, "What do you do with the mad that you feel?"
Yeah.
When you feel so mad that you bite, you could bite. He has a lyric in there. There it is. Sorry, that's why I was looking down at my phone, everybody. I'm not a bad listener.
You put your phone away.
It says, what do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could bite? When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong and nothing you do seems very right. What do you do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or dough? Do you round up some friends for a game of tag or see how fast you could go? And with our now 6-year-old, we talk about that song a lot. When he'll get like tonight, I got mad at the remote. It wasn't working, and he was just like, "It's not working!" And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I don't know what's happening." It's because he had it in his mouth and he broke a button. Anyway, that's a different conversation. But fortunately, we had a backup remote. But he was just like so mad at it. So we talk about like I give him some options, like hey, you want to squeeze? You just squeeze a pillow as hard as you want. Like you can push my hands as hard as you want. You can hug me as hard as you want. Like let's find a way that we can get that out. And I don't know what that would look like for teenagers to walk that out, but I do think the wisdom underneath it is still true. That like finding what you do with the mad that you feel, kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier of like, how am I going to take my anger and put it into something?
Right.
Because like I'm going to feel mad. There's going to be times where I get mad. Like, what does it look like to take, like we earlier said, like take it to God, but then also like to take that and then like, now I'm going to like use it. Like it can be channeled. I can channel it into positive things too.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think about that song or that poem and song a lot when I think about anger and being mad. I hope they don't sue us for reading that on the podcast.
Oh man, with all the dozens of views that we have, I don't know. We might have to get a lawyer on here. No, I like that too, and I think I can see that being maybe another episode or another way, like another part of our conversation that we have about this idea of behavior is. A lot of when we think about behavior management, we think about behaviors that we're trying to take away from kids, right? Which is part of it. Like we don't want kids to, throw stuff through the window or whatever. This is a reasonable thing, but I think we miss a lot is like helping them see like this is the behavior we do want, right? So it's not just the negative action, but here, put this in it.
Yeah, right.
Use this, and inside of moments, not just in the moments of rage, but being able to talk to your teenager about like, hey, look, I know that anger is a part of your life right now, and I don't want you to feel bad about that. Like I don't think anger is a sin, but I do want you to know that like anger can hurt people, right? Right? Anger can move us towards places that we don't want to go, and so here's some really effective ways of how to use your anger when you have it, right? Here's how to put it into it, and so again, these are hard conversations, but I think they're important ones. Figuring out how to do that like effectively. It's tough, but I think it's purposeful.
Yeah.
One of the things we want to do. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Reid.
No, I was going to say, and everything we've just said is only based on the experience we have working with teenagers, not as their parent.
Right.
And so in Henry's 6. So in 7 years, I'll come back. I'll listen to this, and I'll be like, that guy was an idiot. I had nothing.
Whoever was talking there.
What was he doing? What was he doing? Why was he even talking? And we won't know what it's like to parent a teenager until we have one. But the communication strategies I think are helpful, and also just like hopefully like you're not alone, that it's hard, and that's what I think Josh was about to talk about, is that like we would love to like talk like what could we do?
Right. Yeah, this is like literally one of the other reasons we're doing this podcast is to crowdsource information, like literally just to compile things so we know what we're doing. I think what I would love some sort of interaction from you guys that are listening is, what do you wish you knew about parenting teens before you actually had a teen, like teen parent veterans? Like what did you like? Oh, this would have been really helpful. Would love to know that. And just parents in general, like what are questions that you guys have about raising teens, about parenting teens? One of the things that this is going to be what I toss to you here, Reid, but one of the things I really want to do is figure out, how do I continually like foster communication with my kid in a way that they know that their current behavior that they are experiencing, that Jonas is experiencing, is not how I'll define him, right? So that's like a big kind of like a really big emphasis that we try, Caitlin and I, his mom, try to give to him, is that we love him all the time, and that he knows that he is ours, whether or not he is like exhibiting the kind of behavior we want or not, right? And like, how can I do that, parents of teens, when he's 17? Like, how do you foster that, and how do you work through that? That's stuff that I don't know yet, and I would love to know kind of how you do that. I don't know if you have particular questions, Reid.
Yeah. Mine is similar. Mine's more about like 6th and 7th grade though. Like really specifically those grades. Like it gets it gets rough out there in those grades. It's hard for everybody. 8th grade's still hard, but everybody's at least settled into their fear and is now like just like too cool to do anything. But that 6th grade year and the 7th grade year, for whatever reason, can get really, really hard.
Yeah.
And so so if you're a parent and you're listening and you're in that phase and that's like just what you're sitting in right now, geez, I might not know you, but I love you. And like you having that relationship with your child and being a place for them to bring their actual self is good work and is so formative and important. And so that's a big deal. And so one of my big like questions that I have for myself is connected to what I was talking about earlier with the Lent practice I did a year ago of like, when Henry's a teenager, am I going to be able to like release the leash of like the emotional leash of like parent, like actually trust enough to be like you're going to make mistakes, like go. Yeah. Or am I going to like try to white knuckle? I'm sure I'll vacillate, but like, man, I don't know. I think that's one of the things that I'm really, just the day in, day out nature of being like, oh, gosh, you made so many bad choices. Let's try it again. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's going to be something that's just going to be so hard. Yeah. And so parents who are in that phase, like if you want to like, drop a line in our comments of what tools you use, strategies you use, things you like for those years, 6th and 7th grade, especially for me. Like I don't know why, but like those grades in my head just sit in my brain because they were my worst years by far.
I feel like most people experience that to be true.
Yeah, like it's just tough. It's just tough out there. And so I think those are my kind of my thoughts on that front.
Man, there's so many. I'm excited about this. One of the things I love about our podcast is it always feels like there's more to say, right? There's more like opportunities, and so looking forward to the next episodes as we kind of begin to continue to march through some of this. I think that's episode 4 right there, Reid. I think that's what that is. Yeah, that's 4.
It didn't feel glitchy. Right, I can't wait to see. If this works, guys.
We're gonna post.
If you're watching this, we did it.
We did it. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.